All right, welcome everyone. I am delighted to be interviewing my guest today. This is Dr. Mairi Macleod. She is an evolutionary behavioral biologist, and over the last few years, she's been building a business to help women in various aspects of life using an approach based on knowledge of our biology and behavioral tendencies. Her primary mission is to help single women over 50 to find a good partner using science, as well as their own experiences, having been through this challenging process herself. And she's having a lot of success with this. She delivers her help and expertise via small group online course and also through a membership community. Mairi, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm really interested to find out more about your background in behavioral sciences, biology, and how is it that you came to this point where you're helping women finding great relationships using your science background?
Sure. Yeah, it's been quite a long journey. Yeah, as you say, I started out as a biologist, and I studied animal behavior, mostly monkeys. So it all started with monkeys. I was a monkey keeper for a while in a sanctuary in the south of England. And I became fascinated with their behavior. This is after doing a degree in biology. And I took myself off around the world studying behavior of animals, mostly monkeys, in different parts of the world. I did my PhD studying Samango monkeys, their mating strategies in South Africa for a couple of years, and that was an amazing experience. But then I came back to the UK. I was living in London, and I met my first husband and started having babies. And having babies doesn't really go along with doing field work in the jungle. So I had to find something else. And I became a science journalist, writing articles about behavior, and more it became about human behavior and also around relationships and attraction. And so I built up a big knowledge of that. So basically, over the years, I realized that I can actually use this knowledge that I've built up and apply it in the real world. And I've been helping women in various respects, in leadership areas. But more recently, I've come around to the idea of using this approach to help women looking for partners. And I've been through that challenging process myself, and I know it works. So this is my mission now in life, is to help midlife women find a good partner, because I know what a difference it makes.
So how do you apply that learning to the coaching work that you do with women? Like, how does that work?
Well, I mean, taking a biological approach, or certainly an evolutionary approach, means looking at why we've evolved to be the way we are. And, I know that it's tough finding a relationship for women of any age, really, but maybe especially for women in midlife. Although we do have some advantages, I'll go into that at some point. But some of the problems we have, I think, come down to our evolved propensities. So, we tend to follow our gut instincts when it comes to picking a guy, and the problem with that is those gut instincts and those things that give us the chemistry and the spark and, who we fancy, those things evolved back in the Stone Age, when we needed different things from relationships. We tended to have quite short-term relationships. We might have been looking for a big, strong, tough, dominant guy who could fight off the other guys and get resources for us and our kids. But obviously nowadays we need different things, and especially at our time of life, we need different things. So my contention is we need to evolve our strategies, consciously evolve our ways of looking for men, to find ones that are actually going to make us happy and suit us, in the modern world and at the time of life we're at now.
So it's almost in our DNA then, the way we go about searching for a mate. And if I'm hearing you correctly, that deeply rooted propensity or propensities probably wouldn't serve us that well now if we're still looking for that same kind of big, strong hunter-gatherer mate. That's not necessarily going to work now. So what tips do you have for women in this day and age to look for the perfect mate, if I can use that?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's all our DNA. Obviously, the stories that we grow up with have an impact as well. And things like rom-coms, they just get it completely wrong. It's like you get together with a guy, he's really difficult and everything, and then you just wait a while and he turns into a nice guy. That doesn't happen in real life. You know, that's not the way to go about things. You don't want to stick with
I'm
a
so
crazy
disappointed.
There's a much better way to do it in real life. Well, in terms of the tips, I think the very first thing to get sorted is your self-esteem and your confidence, because these are your most powerful tools when it comes to picking the right guy. You know, if you have a high level of confidence, you know, it makes you glow, it makes you really attractive. You know how attractive, confident people are. But it also means that you're not going to put up with shit, basically. You know, if you have high self-esteem, you're confident in yourself and what you need, you know, you're not going to let someone mess you about. You're not going to stick with a guy just because you think he can't get anything else. So that's something that we really need to work on. And we also need to get our social support sorted. Make sure you've got good friends around you, make sure you've got a good social network, because that makes you strong. That means that you're not lonely, you're not looking for someone to sort of fill that gap, you're looking for someone to put the icing on the cake, somebody that is going to enhance your life, not just kind of make you not lonely, obviously. So how do we increase self-esteem and so on? Well, I think the science helps us here. I mean, what the research shows is that people of all types are attractive to a cohort of people out there. So, you know, if we take the example of, say, body size and shape, you know, a lot of women think, oh, I have to be thin and, you know, have curves in exactly the right places, otherwise I'm not attractive and nobody will want me. That's not true. You know, there are all sorts of different things impacting on what guys like, you know, their size and shape for a start, their personality, the kind of environment they're in, their attitudes to women, even whether they've had a meal recently or not. You know, all sorts of crazy things impact on what kind of body type a man's into. And basically, you know, for any personality, for any body type, for any type of person, there's going to be somebody out there that, you know, loves that, or a group of people that love that. So you can be confident about that. I think another thing to do is to, you know, think about the things about yourself that are good, you know, things that you're talented at, things that you're good at, things that your friends like you for. And you can ask your friends about this, you know, because you might not actually know what they value in you. And in fact, many of the women that I've worked with on my program, you know, they've done that, and then they've actually been quite amazed at the things that people like them for, and that's really boosted their confidence. And, you know, maybe write down 3 things at the end of every day that you like yourself for, you know, things that, it can be little things like, you know, you smiled at someone in the street and they smile back, or they could be bigger things. But what that will get you doing then is looking out for the things that you do that are good, and you'll find lots and lots of things, and that's going to sort of boost your feeling of worth and that you've got that. So that will massively help you, you know, get to a good point for starting dating, definitely.
It's so interesting that so many of the coaches I've spoken to on a variety of topics and themes have said just that, which is that the starting point needs to be within ourselves. We need to make sure that we ourselves are clear and confident before we look for that mate, because if we're looking for that person to fix something, whether it's filling a void, or that's going to be probably frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes, you know, I'm thinking about a few women I know, and I would say their pattern in relationships is that they tend to go for the bad boy type, if I can use that term. I mean, do you have any thoughts about why that is, and what maybe what they're not doing that would help them find a better, more compatible partner? What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally understandable, and it's what I used to do as well, all the time, with bad results, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, it's going back to that kind of what we're evolved for thing again. You know, sort of over evolutionary time, I suppose, it paid to go for, you know, a dominant guy who was good at getting resources. Nowadays, that would translate into high status, more money, you know, maybe big, strong and muscly, high testosterone. But these can be really sexy things, but they're not necessarily great in the longer term. So for example, I mean, the problem is we can't get everything we want in one man. You know, and it's you know, you can't be everything all at once. So if a guy is highly competitive and, you know, high status at work and, you know, does really well in that regard, the chances are he has got a personality that is low in the factor agreeableness, because he has to be quite ruthless in order to have that success. But if you think about it, a guy who's low in agreeableness, you know, that means he's not very empathetic, he's not very considerate. You know, it's not going to be great for a relationship, especially in the longer term. It might be really sexy at the start when he's got all this stuff to offer, but you know, in the long term, you want something nicer. So I would, you know, I'd be more inclined then to sort of try and consciously shift your perspective and go for, you know, the kind of guys who have your well-being at heart, you know, who are considerate, who are reliable. It might sound boring, but actually, you know, get to know them and they'll become very unboring. You know, I mean, you know, certainly my story is that, you know, I used to go for the bad boy types. It always went wrong eventually. And so, you know, I was single for a long time. I was a single mum. I chose my first husband using my gut instincts, and that didn't go well. So I was on my own pretty quickly after having my 3 kids, and still carried on choosing the wrong guys. And then I realized, having, you know, written for ages about human behavior and about attraction and relationships and so on, you know, the penny dropped. Actually, I've got the information I need. I just have to pull it all together. And then, so I kind of, you know, put together a scientific strategy for finding a guy. And actually very quickly I found the guy who's now my husband, Rob. And the crazy thing is, you know, he's a lovely guy. I absolutely adore him. He's the love of my life, you know, best relationship ever. But I would never have noticed him if I had been going, you know, doing the stuff that I used to do and going for the bad boy types, because he's a nice guy, you know. And so, you know, this is what I teach basically, is kind of how to, you know, look for, identify and attract and desire, you know, the right kind of guy that's going to make you happy.
Did your husband know he was the subject of a kind of scientific experiment?
I think probably
reveal that?
Yeah, I met him first of all at a singles night in a bar in Edinburgh. That's where I am, in Edinburgh in Scotland. And yeah, when I first met him, I got talking to him, and it wasn't like sparks and fireworks right away, like, you know, it's been in the past with other guys. I just thought he's a nice guy. I'm curious to know a bit more. And as it happened, I was running some workshops on the science of attraction and relationships. This was for, you know, both sexes at the time. This was a few years ago. And I just asked if he might want to come along to them. You know, I gave him my card. And so he came along. You know, it was weekly, you know, it's one class a week on a Thursday evening, and we got to know each other over time. And, you know, I realized, you know, as I got to know him, that he was a really great guy. And yeah, that's
the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, you know, I'm thinking back to some of my own early relationships, and what I, if I'm honest, what I think was happening sometimes, if it was a relationship that really I should never have gotten into, there's that first kind of honeymoon period where everything is rainbows and unicorns, and we're just finding every possible way that this person is a good connection for us, and oh, we both wore jeans the same time we met up, and how awesome is that? Or some really kind of random and unimportant element, but we'll zero in on those kinds of things. It's almost like we're trying really hard to make this work, and perhaps ignoring some signs that this isn't going to be the best matchup.
Yeah.
How can we navigate that, the first blush of a new relationship, to really test whether this is one that will stand through time? I think you talk about, either it was in one of your podcast interviews, or perhaps on one of your blog items, you talk about mate value. And I mean, how can we determine that in that early phase of the rush. It's an adrenaline, it's a dopamine, whatever the process is going on. It's a thrill, it's a high, and we kind of sometimes lose our ability to be discerning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a few things in there. First of all, mate value, just to explain what that is. Mate value is kind of your appeal on the mating market, as it were. So, it kind of represents the number of options out there for you. And it tends to be based on fairly superficial characteristics that are easy to see and to perceive right away. And the things that give men high mate value might be a bit different from women. Women tend to rely on physical attractiveness more. Men tend to rely a bit on, their status and their money and so on. But the crucial thing with mate value is that we really want to try and get together with someone who has a similar mate value to ourselves. And the reason for that is because if you get together with somebody that's got super high mate value, he's got loads of women after him, then you have an obvious problem. There's lots of competition for this guy. He knows he doesn't have to try very hard, and he might not be very invested in the relationship. If it's the other way around, if you're the one that's kind of, super duper and your partner's not so great, then you won't be as invested. Whereas if you're of equal mate value, you'll both want to make it work. You'll both know that you're not going to find someone else easily that can replace this great person that you're with. And so you'll both want to work hard, and that will, produce a good relationship. So what I say to women is, you might think, oh, I need to have someone that's really good looking and, got a good salary and everything. And you might feel really lucky if you land someone like that. But think about it, how's that going to be in the long term? You might find that he doesn't treat you that great. And what I'm suggesting here is not settling, not going for a duffer, just so that it's not going to run off with somebody else. What I'm suggesting here is being fussy, but being fussy about the right characteristics, looking for guys with the qualities that are going to make you happy. And that, I think that means going for, someone who's considerate and, is going to look after you. Now, you said about, once you get into a relationship, how do you, you talked about the making excuses and everything, and I totally recognize that, sort of trying to mold this person into the thing you want. What I suggest here, and this is absolutely no moral thing, but if you find yourself getting together with a super hot guy and you just want to jump into bed right away, maybe hold off a little while. I would never have taken this advice myself when I was younger. but the thing is, once we start getting intimate with somebody, that sets off our neurotransmitters. So the dopamine levels spike, the oxytocin goes up, the beta endorphin joins in, and we become really attached to this person, right away, before we've had a chance to suss out whether the right, the person for us. If they have the right characteristics. So I would sort of try and hold off on the intimacy until you know that this is a good guy. Because if you're just going with the chemistry, if you're just going, I really fancy this bloke, it might not work out. And the thing is, then once you're attached, once you have all these hormones doing their thing in your brain, it's going to be really hard for you to extract yourself from that situation if it does turn out to not be working. And you will do this thing of, but we just need to give it time, and everybody has a bit of problems with relationships. I just need to behave myself in a different way. No. You need to find somebody who lets you be you and respects you for what you want in the relationship, because that's what's going to make you happy.
Yeah, and that's you've really touched on something important, I think, around first of all, knowing yourself and knowing the values that are important to you first. And I know my own values have changed around what I would look for in a mate, from when I was in my 20s or 30s as opposed to now. So what's different about working with women in these middle years? What are the challenges, or what are the opportunities that weren't available earlier? For us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, yes, we sometimes feel that we've got challenges as we're older, and maybe we worry about what our bodies are doing and so on. However, we do have a number of advantages, and we know what we want. We also our hormones are working in our favor, believe it or not. You know, as we sort of get into the sort of menopausal time of life, our hormones are obviously changing. And we have a tendency to be less likely to be attracted to the sort of macho testosterone laden types than women of reproductive age. You know, we're not looking for a father for our children at this point in life. So that frees us up as well. You know, we're not kind of having to judge people on their sort of genetic aptitude to father children with us. We're not going to get caught up in the school run and everything and all the hassles that entails. And we don't have a biological clock ticking, so we can take our time. And if we get into a relationship and it doesn't work for us, next, you know, especially as we're probably, you know, this time of life, we're more likely to be sort of financially independent and so on. But yeah, I think definitely we tend to look for different things, and we need to sort of shift our thinking to finding somebody that's going to be, you know, good for us in the stage of life we're at. And so I think what I tell, you know, what I suggest women do is think about their wants for a partner versus their needs for a partner. So wants would be things that would be nice to have, but are negotiable. You know, they're not maybe things that are absolutely necessary for a good long-term relationship. So that might be something like what hobbies they do. You know, I love to ski, but my husband, he doesn't ski. But it's not the end of the world. It'd be nice if you skied, but you know, it's not going to happen. So I'll just have to go with someone else if I wanted to go and ski. But it's not, you know, there are far more important things than whether he skis or not. Another thing might be height. You know, a lot of women, most women, in fact, tend to want a tall man or someone that's at least taller than they are. But is that really a deal breaker? You know, if he's got an amazing personality, he's really got your well-being at heart, he's got a fantastic sense of humor. Doesn't matter if he's just an inch shorter than you. You know, maybe kind of open up your sort of potential dating pool a little bit by sort of compromising on the things that aren't absolutely vital. But then when it comes to needs, these are the things like, do his values align with yours? You know, does he want to, you know, does he have similar kind of political and religious leanings? Because that tends to be quite important for people. Also, you know, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? You know, if you want to spend your retirement, say, traveling the world, and you're with a guy that just wants to stay home and tend the garden, then you're not going to be very happy. Or if you're a very touchy-feely person and your partner is kind of standoffish and, you know, don't touch me kind of thing, you're going to be really miserable. So these kind of things have to align. And you also want to look for those personality traits that are important. And then again, there'll be the deal breakers as well, the things that you really must avoid. And then we get into the territory of things like avoidant attachment and dark triad traits, which are really scary. but yeah, that's what I would say. You know, work out what your wants are, but then what your needs are, and then it's the needs that you should be really focusing on, obviously, because
that's really good advice.
That can open up your potential.
So, Mary, I'm sure I'm hearing many women in the audience saying, "Okay, got it. Where are all these great men? Where do we find them? Where are they?"
They're hiding in plain sight. Yeah, I mean, the problem is, I mean, a lot of women think, oh, you know, the only guys out there are just awful, you know, they're players, or, you know, some bad thing that they don't want. And, you know, it does seem that way a lot of the time with both online dating and in real life. But I think the issue is, you know, the guys who approach you, they tend to be the ones with loads of confidence. They maybe don't, you know, they've probably got lots of experience with women. They maybe don't care too much what people think, so they're not that nervous. So they're not necessarily going to be that nice or great to be with. You know, they might be players, they might be, you know, people just looking for a short-term fling or whatever. The nice guys, they are less likely to approach you simply because perhaps they don't not quite as confident in the realm of talking to women, perhaps, or, you know, they're just more respectful. You know, they don't want to be that creepy guy, you know, especially these days when we're thinking more about, you know, how men approach women and what sort of consent and everything should be.
Yeah.
So we might not get approached by the nice guys. And so what I would suggest, two things. One is make yourself more approachable to potentially nice guys. So, you know, if you're out at the bar with your friend, or if you're going to meet a friend at a bar, say, or in a cafe for a coffee, arrive a little bit early so you're on your own and can potentially speak to people. Don't be sitting on your phone scrolling or you know, looking at emails. Have an open body posture, make eye contact with people, smile. You know, there's nothing more inviting than that. And then there's more chance that, you know, someone you're interested in might, you know, come over and talk to you. But obviously, we're 21st century women, we can talk to men. Make some approaches yourself, you know, because that might be what you know, gives you that opportunity. And actually, it's just reminding me of when I met my husband, you know, so I told you already that I met him at a singles evening in a bar in Edinburgh. And I wasn't even going to go, you know, a friend of mine had asked me to go along with her, and I didn't really feel like it. It was a January night, it was cold and wet, and I was busy, and I thought, oh, it's going to be rubbish. But I actually gave myself a talking to. I said, Mary, look, you need to make opportunities for yourself. You know, I was doing my new, you know, finding a man thing, and you've got to make opportunities for yourself. You've got to go. So off I went along to this this singles night with my friend. We went in there and went up to the bar and got our complimentary drink, and turned around to survey the scene. And it was a funny situation. We'd arrived sort of fairly early in the evening, and there was a few guys, like all single by themselves at different tables around the bar. And it's like they staked out their little territories, you know. And I was thinking, well, how am I gonna speak to anybody here? And then I spotted Rob, who's my husband now. And he was at a table sort of fairly near the bar, and I thought, he looks quite nice. I'd quite like to speak to him, but you know, I can't just like walk up and talk to him. It's like really difficult. And then, as luck would have it, some women came in to the bar, and one of them I happened to know, and they sort of congregated in a group at the same table as Rob, just opposite him. And I thought, yes, I'll go and speak to them. And so I went to speak to them, and then gradually sidled around the table and started chatting with Rob. And so that's how we actually started talking. And, you know, then, you know, I gave him my card and told him about my classes and all that kind of stuff. But it was really funny because just recently I was talking to him about this. And, you know, I know that he was interested in me when he came in, because he's told me that, you know, he thought, oh, that, you know, she looks nice and all that. But I asked him, if I hadn't come up and spoken to you at the table, would you have approached me? And he thought about it for a bit, and he said, I might not have. And I thought, wow. So if I hadn't made that move and spoken to him, I wouldn't be with the love of my life. You know, I wouldn't have got married to this amazing guy. It would never have happened.
Yeah.
It really underlines to me how vitally important it is to make opportunities for yourself and not be afraid of making the first move. And, you know, you can meet guys anywhere. It doesn't have to be a, you know, organized event like I was in. You know, you could be in a cafe, in a bar, on a train, you know, in the park, wherever. Just get into the habit of talking to people. Doesn't have to be, you know, potential partners, but just get into that habit of you know, making contact, just passing the time of day, you know, whether it's in the Starbucks queue or whatever. You know, you could ask for a bit of help with something. If you spot someone that's interesting, you know, oh, could you just reach that thing on the high shelf for me, or could you just watch my laptop while I go and get a coffee? You know, I don't mean, you know, you've got to kind of come with the, you know, sort of needy little woman vibe or anything. You know, it's just starting off a conversation in a nice way, you know, asking for a little bit of investment. And, you know, if a guy is in any way interested or nice, he will be delighted to do that thing, and that will set you off on a conversation, and you never know where it might lead.
Oh, that's great advice. Just take a chance, talk to people. I love that. That's so lovely. And, you know, I was
what's
thinking,
the worst that can happen? You make a few friends, you know.
yeah.
But you never know what might happen.
Exactly. I was thinking, as you were talking about the scene when you met your husband, it was almost like a, you know, a high school dance when the boys are all on one side of the gym and the girls are on the other side of the gym.
Yeah, it did feel a bit like that.
Who makes the first move? Oh, what a delightful story. Well, Mary, it's absolutely been lovely speaking with you. It's been so interesting. Before you go, I'd love to get you just to share with everyone your gift for our audience.
Absolutely. Well, I have written an ebook called 5 Science-Based Ways to Find the Man You Need. So remember, the man you need, not the man you want necessarily, for women over 50, although 50 is, it doesn't have to be over 50. It's kind of, women that are past the stage of looking for a man to have kids with, basically. So 5 Science-Based Ways to Find the Man You Need. And, this will set you on the path. It's basically the principles I use to find my man. And, this is something that you can read and get to work on right away to increase your chances of finding that great relationship, which will give you a lot of happiness.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Mary. And again, it's just been a delight talking with you today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I've really enjoyed it.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Kit.